standing on frozen ground, wind cutting through your armor like a blade. You're surrounded by 50,000 men who carry the blood of the greatest conquerors humanity has ever known. Your ancestors crushed kingdoms, burned cities, and made emperors kneel. Now, you're the one who might not survive the day. That was the reality facing the Mongol army at Lake Bure in 1388, and what happened next would shatter an empire forever. Here's the thing. Most people don't understand about the fall of great powers. They don't crumble from a single blow. They rot from within, slowly, quietly, until one final push sends everything tumbling down. The Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire in human history, didn't die on that battlefield. It had been dying for decades. Lake Bure was simply where the world finally witnessed the corpse. But let me take you back, way back, because to understand how an empire dies, you first need to understand how it was born. Picture the Mongolian steppes around 1162, harsh, unforgiving, a place where weakness meant death and survival required something beyond ordinary strength. This is where a boy named Temujin entered the world. His father was poisoned when he was 9 years old. His clan abandoned his family. They were left to starve, reduced to hunting rodents and scraping roots from frozen earth just to stay alive. Now pause and think about that for a second. This child eating rats to survive would grow up to conquer more territory than Alexander, Caesar, and Napoleon combined. What does that tell you about what adversity can forge inside a person? By 1206, Temujin had done the impossible. He unified every Mongol tribe under his command. At a great assembly, they proclaimed him Genghis Khan, the universal ruler, and then the world started burning. In less than 30 years, the Mongols carved a path of destruction stretching from Korea to Eastern Europe. Ancient cities that had stood for centuries fell in weeks. Baghdad, Samarkand, Kiev, reduced to ash and bone. Historians estimate roughly 40 million people died during these conquests. 40 million. That's not a war. That's an extinction event. So how did these nomads from the frozen steppes accomplish what no army before or since has managed? 3 things. First, speed. Every Mongol warrior rode with multiple horses, letting them cover distances that seemed supernatural to their enemies. While other armies marched 20 miles in a day, the Mongols could cover 100. Second, brutal discipline. Their military organization was flawless, units coordinating like a single organism across vast battlefields. Third, they weren't proud. They stole every good idea they encountered. Chinese siege engineers, Persian administrators, whatever worked. Pride didn't win battles. Results did. For China, the Mongol conquest was humiliation beyond comprehension. The civilization that had invented gunpowder, the compass, and printing, conquered by people they considered unwashed barbarians. When Kublai Khan, Genghis's grandson, completed the conquest in 1271 and established the Yuan dynasty, it marked the first time in China's millennia-long history that foreigners ruled the entire nation. The ethnic Chinese were pushed to the bottom of society, below even foreign merchants. They couldn't learn Mongolian, they couldn't carry weapons, they couldn't hold government positions. Every day was a reminder, you are beneath us. Remember that humiliation? It matters. Now here's where the cracks started showing. The Mongols conquered like wolves, but they never quite figured out how to stop being wolves. Their tradition of dividing territory among sons worked fine for nomadic tribes. For a transcontinental empire, it was poison. After Genghis died, the empire split into 4 khanates. At first, they cooperated, brothers and cousins maintaining the family business. But generations passed, blood ties thinned, the khanates started fighting each other, the unity that made the Mongols unstoppable, gone. Meanwhile, inside China, the Yuan dynasty was rotting. Kublai had been brilliant, able to rule as a Chinese emperor while keeping his Mongol identity. His successors, pampered princes raised in silk-lined palaces. They'd never survived a harsh winter on the steppes, never hunted their own food, never earned anything through struggle. The administration turned corrupt. Taxes skyrocketed to fund failed invasions of Japan and Vietnam. Inflation spiraled out of control, and then nature delivered the killing blow. Catastrophic floods along the Yellow River, followed by waves of bubonic plague that devastated the population. Can any regime survive when it loses both the respect of its people and the loyalty of its elites? History says no. This is where Zhu Yuanzhang enters the story. An orphan peasant who'd found refuge in a Buddhist monastery until famine destroyed it. He joined a rebel group called the Red Turbans, and something became immediately clear. This man was different. While other rebel leaders spouted religious fantasies, Zhu understood something fundamental. Defeating the Mongols required more than passion. It required organization, discipline, a vision for what comes after. By 1355, he'd established a shadow government in Nanjing. Taxes, administration, a professional army. While his rivals tore each other apart fighting over scraps, Zhu built something that could last, and in 1368 he did what had seemed impossible: complete expulsion of the Mongols from China. He proclaimed himself Emperor Hongwu and founded the Ming dynasty. The Mongols retreated north, back to the steppes, telling themselves this was temporary. They established what they called the Northern Yuan dynasty, insisting they remained China's rightful rulers. But the reality was brutal. They'd become dependent on Chinese resources, agriculture, trade, taxes. Now they had nothing. Many Mongols raised in Beijing's luxury had actually forgotten how to survive the traditional way. The irony cuts deep. The fiercest conquerors in history couldn't remember how to live like their ancestors. Emperor Hongwu, meanwhile, prepared for the inevitable confrontation. He rebuilt the Great Wall, established a network of watchtowers and signal fires along the northern border, but most significantly, he transformed the Chinese military into something the Mongols had never faced before. Light cavalry that could pursue nomads across the steppes, mobile artillery, and units equipped with a weapon that would change everything: gunpowder firearms. By 1388, as the Northern Yuan had a new Khan, Togus Timur, young, ambitious, determined to reclaim his ancestors' glory. Through diplomacy and force, he'd reunified many of the scattered Mongol tribes and gathered an army of 50,000 warriors. His scouts reported Ming border garrisons were weakened. The aging Hongwu seemed distracted by palace intrigues. The opportunity looked perfect. It was a trap. General Lan Yu, Hongwu's chief military strategist, had designed the whole thing. He deliberately showed weakness on the border, positioned small, vulnerable-looking forces as bait. And when the Mongols advanced, 80,000 Ming soldiers waited in hidden positions. So there we are. Lake Buir, May 14th, 1388. Dawn breaks over the steppes. In the Mongol camp, shamans burn aromatic herbs. A white horse is sacrificed. Togus Timur, barely 28 years old, addresses his generals. "Our ancestors conquered the world from these steppes," he declares. "The Chinese think we're weak because they pushed us back to our homeland, but this land forged Genghis Khan. We are wolves, returned to our lair." His warriors clash swords against shields. Their scouts report only 30,000 Ming soldiers approaching. What they cannot see are the 50,000 more advancing by hidden routes. 10 kilometers south, the Ming camp operates with mechanical precision. No rituals, just officers studying maps, reviewing tactics. Lan Yu personally inspects every unit. "The Mongols think they know us," he tells his commanders. "They expect us to fight defensively, terrified of their cavalry. Today we destroy that delusion. We've studied their every tactic, and we will use that knowledge to end the Mongol threat permanently. By mid-morning, both armies deploy. The Mongols arrange themselves in their classic crescent formation, center apparently weak, wings ready to envelop attackers. A tactic that's worked in hundreds of battles from China to Hungary. The Ming form what looks like a standard defensive rectangle, heavy infantry centered, small cavalry units on the flanks. Exactly what the Mongols expect. What they can't see are the heavy cavalry divisions hidden behind low hills several kilometers away. The Mongols make the first move. 10,000 horse archers detach and begin their signature tactic, the whirlwind, galloping in enormous circles around the Ming formation, firing a constant rain of arrows. It's terrifying and beautiful. 1,000 arrows every 10 seconds, hammering the Chinese lines. But Lan Yu has prepared a specific response: rotating shield formations, coordinated crossbow fire, and most importantly, absolute discipline. No one breaks formation to pursue. That's exactly what the Mongols want. After an hour, Toghus Timur recognizes the tactic isn't working. Ming casualties are minimal. His archers are exhausting their arrows. Time for the main assault. With thundering drums, 20,000 Mongol riders charge directly at the Ming center. Toghus Timur leads personally, lances gleaming, silk banners with the blue wolf emblem streaming behind them. The earth itself trembles. Lan Yu watches with studied calm. He waits until the Mongols are 400 meters away, fully committed, unable to stop or change direction. Then he gives the signal. The solid Ming rectangle splits open like massive doors. Through the gap advance 5,000 soldiers carrying weapons the Mongols have never seen concentrated like this. Primitive firearms, fire lances, hand cannons. Fire! What follows is apocalyptic. Hundreds of weapons detonate simultaneously. A wall of lead, fire, and shrapnel slams into the Mongol charge. The first line falls almost completely. Horses, terrified by the roar and sulfur stink, rear up, throwing riders. Chaos erupts. Toghus Timur's horse takes a bullet. The Khan crashes to the ground. His guards surround him desperately. This is when Lan Yu springs the second phase. The hidden Ming cavalry, 30,000 armored riders, emerge on both Mongol flanks. The hunters become the hunted. What follows isn't a battle. It's systematic extermination. On the right flank, veteran General Kokutekai forms a desperate defensive circle. For an hour, his men resist heroically. But numbers don't lie. Eventually, the circle breaks. Kokutekai dies with a Ming lance through his throat. In the center, Toghus Timur fights with the courage of his bloodline. 3 horses killed under him, an arrow in his left shoulder, a sword gash across his face. Still he swings his blade, remembering stories of his great-grandfather Kublai, of the great Genghis himself. But courage has limits against crushing reality. When surviving riders reach him, his advisors beg him to flee. A living Khan can raise another army. A dead Khan becomes a trophy. With a shattered heart, Toghus Timur finally accepts. 200 warriors manage to break through the Ming encirclement, riding north into the frozen depths of Mongolia. Behind them, carnage. 30,000 Mongols dead, 10,000 captured. The few thousand who escaped scatter like leaves in a storm. Ming losses, 8,000 dead, 12,000 wounded. An acceptable price for ending an empire. As sunset dies, Lake Buir's waters red, Lan Yu tours the battlefield. Bodies of men and horses stretch to the horizon. Once proud, Mongol banners lie trampled in mud. Thus ends an empire, he murmurs, not with a shout but a whisper. Toghus Timur fled ever further north. Each day his entourage shrank. Desertion, ambushes, exhaustion. Within 2 years he was dead, assassinated by internal rivals. the last Khan with genuine imperial aspirations. The Mongol Empire was finished. What remained were dozens of quarreling tribal confederations, shadows of shadows. Note the sophisticated administrative systems vanished, libraries destroyed, knowledge accumulated over generations erased in a single lifetime. And China? The Ming entered a golden age. The civilization that had endured a century of barbarian rule reclaimed its position as East Asia's dominant power. But here's what haunts me about this story. The Mongols didn't lose because they lacked courage. Toghus Timur fought like a lion. Their warriors died standing. They lost because empires built on conquest alone cannot sustain themselves. Military brilliance isn't enough. The Mongols borrowed administrative systems from conquered peoples and never developed their own. When those systems collapsed, nothing remained. They lost because internal divisions, tribal loyalties, family rivalries proved stronger than imperial unity. The tradition of dividing inheritance that worked for nomadic clans became fatal for transcontinental empires. They lost because identity crisis paralyzed their elite. Descendants of world conquerors raised in palaces couldn't survive on the steppes their ancestors had dominated. And maybe most importantly, they lost because humiliated people remember. Those Chinese forced to the bottom of society for a century, they remembered everything. Their revenge was patient and total. Today, Lake Bure sits quiet on the Mongolia-China border. The wind whispers over rolling hills where 50,000 warriors met their doom. Nothing marks the spot where an empire died. The Mongol people survive, of course. 3 million strong in modern Mongolia, a nation trapped between Russia and China. Is its imperial glory a distant memory studied in history books? But here's the thing about history. It doesn't just record the past, it warns the future. Every empire believes itself eternal. The Mongols certainly did. From the Pacific to Eastern Europe, their power seemed absolute. 2 centuries later, scattered tribes fighting for survival. Power is like the steppe wind. It lifts you impossibly high, then abandons you. Only the land remains. If this journey through the rise and fall of the Mongol Empire gripped you, smash that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories about how the mighty fall and what their collapse teaches us about power, leadership, and the destiny of nations. Drop a comment below. Which empire's fall do you find most fascinating? What lessons from history do you think we're ignoring today?